Interests and Challenges in the 21st Century. Antes de iniciar, como protocolo de seguridad, vamos a visualizar un video sobre normas de seguridad en el auditorio. Buenas noches, personas estudiantes, personal docente y administrativo que nos acompañan el día de hoy. Doctor Marco Méndez Coto, director de la Escuela de Relaciones Internacionales. Señor Satoshi Yoshida, representante residente de JICA en Costa Rica. Doctor Ayako Kusunoki, Professor of the International Research Center for Japanese Studies, Nichibunken. Excelentísimo señor Ariyoshi Katsuhide, embajador del Japón en Costa Rica. Máster Francisco González Alvarado, rector de la Universidad Nacional. Una cordial bienvenida a esta conferencia llamada Japan Security Interests and Challenges in the 21st Century. Como parte de este acto de apertura vamos a escuchar las palabras de bienvenida a cargo del doctor Marco Méndez Coto, director de la Escuela de Relaciones Internacionales.
Buenas noches, señor Francisco González Alvarado, rector, excelentísimo señor Ariyoshi Katsuhide, embajador del Japón en Costa Rica, y a su señora esposa, también una cordial saludo, bienvenida. Kusunoki Sensei, thanks for being here with us today. Señor Satoshi Yoshida, representante residente de JICA en Costa Rica, personas diplomáticas y de la Agencia Internacional de Cooperación del Japón que nos acompañan en esta actividad, queridas personas estudiantes, académicos y personal administrativo de la Escuela de Relaciones Internacionales. Un gusto saludarles y tener la oportunidad de compartir con ustedes en esta conferencia sobre los retos de seguridad del Japón en el siglo XXI. Como es de nuestro conocimiento, la Escuela de Relaciones Internacionales se ha abocado a reflexionar sobre las temáticas de la realidad internacional más relevantes en el contexto contemporáneo. Muchas veces esos retos pueden parecer lejanos a nuestra realidad y a nuestra geografía. Sin embargo, conforme ha avanzado la tecnología, hemos observado cómo cada vez se disipan esas distancias y las realidades que parecen lejanas cada vez tienen efectos en nuestras vidas cotidianas de una forma más rápida. En este contexto, la cooperación internacional es vital en la medida que nos ha permitido el intercambio de conocimientos y la expansión de nuestros horizontes, y en ese marco resaltamos las excelentes relaciones de nuestra unidad académica y de nuestra universidad con el hermano país del Japón. La Escuela de Relaciones Internacionales ha tenido una muy cercana relación con Japón, mediante la colaboración con la Agencia Internacional de Cooperación del Japón y con la Embajada del Japón. A lo largo de estos años, producto de esta cercanía, hemos podido colaborar en la organización de diversas actividades académicas y culturales que han beneficiado a nuestra población estudiantil. En el marco de este proceso de colaboración con el Japón, es que desde el año 2022 empezamos a desarrollar el proyecto de la cátedra JICA. Es una cátedra que nos llena de gran orgullo como unidad académica y ha sido producto del esfuerzo conjunto, tanto de personas estudiantes como de los profesores y profesoras que han liderado este espacio. Y en el marco de esta cátedra JICA, de la cual nuevamente nos sentimos muy contentos, ustedes como estudiantes han tenido la oportunidad de participar en charlas, en conferencias, en talleres, incluso se han hecho visitas a otros espacios de la Universidad Nacional o de la Universidad de Costa Rica, e incluso algunas personas estudiantes han participado en convocatorias de becas que ha ofrecido el gobierno del Japón, y en el marco de esta cátedra JICA hemos ofrecido el curso Japón Contemporáneo, que algunos y algunas de ustedes pues son estudiantes de esta materia, que es una materia opcional, donde han tenido la oportunidad de tener un mayor acercamiento a la realidad japonesa, su cultura, su economía y su política. En el marco de esta cátedra JICA, contaremos esta noche con la posibilidad de escuchar a la doctora Kusunoki con esta conferencia sobre los intereses de seguridad del Japón en el siglo XXI, quien es una reconocida experta en política internacional y en los estudios de seguridad del Japón. Japón se encuentra inserto en una zona geopolítica regional que se caracteriza por crecientes tensiones entre potencias y una serie de liderazgos globales y regionales que tienen visiones diversas e incluso revisionistas sobre el orden internacional. En este sentido, existe una serie de retos en su zona inmediata que también resaltan su rol como potencia en la escena global. Comunidad académica, para nosotros es un espacio sumamente valioso para escuchar de primera mano las ideas sobre las cuales esos retos de seguridad y la forma en las cuales se abordan por el Japón y en su política exterior. Para un país como el nuestro, que históricamente se ha insertado en los foros de alta política internacional con temas como la paz y el desarme, entender con profundidad las experiencias y visiones de un Estado como el Japón resulta fundamental. De esta manera esperamos que estos espacios nos ayuden a acercarnos cada vez más y a profundizar el conocimiento mutuo orientado a fortalecer la relación entre dos pueblos hermanos como lo son el Japón y Costa Rica. Nuestro sincero agradecimiento a Kusunoki Sensei por emprender tan largo viaje para compartir con nosotros el día de hoy en esta actividad, a JICA Costa Rica y a la Embajada por permitir materializar esta conferencia. Confiamos en que la cooperación entre nuestras instituciones continuará creciendo y generando mayores frutos. Muchas gracias y que disfruten de la conferencia.
Muchas gracias, señor director. Seguidamente escucharemos el saludo del señor Satoshi Yoshida, representante residente de JICA en Costa Rica.
Buenas tardes. Excelentísimo señor Ariyoshi Katsuhide, embajador de Japón en Costa Rica. Señor Francisco González Alvarado, rector de la Universidad Nacional. Señor Marco Méndez Coto, director de la Escuela de Relaciones Internacionales de la Universidad Nacional. doctora Kusunoki Ayako, profesora del International Research Center for Japanese Studies, Nichibunken, estimadas personas académicas y estudiantes de la Universidad Nacional y otras universidades. Muy buenas tardes, tengan todos ustedes. Mi nombre es Satoshi Yoshida, soy el representante residente de la Agencia de Cooperación Internacional de Japón, oficina de JICA en Costa Rica. Primero, quisiera expresar mi más sincero agradecimiento por la organización de esta serie de conferencias. Ha sido un esfuerzo muy valioso por parte de las personas académicas de la Escuela de Relaciones Internacionales de la Universidad Nacional y la Oficina de Asuntos Internacionales en conjunto con JICA. Este compromiso conjunto hizo posible la visita de la doctora Kusunoki al país para llevar a cabo esas conferencias. Como parte del fortalecimiento al programa de la cátedra JICA, también queremos agradecer a la doctora Kusunoki por su interés y disposición de venir a Costa Rica a compartir su experiencia y valiosos conocimientos, principalmente en materia de política internacional, diplomacia y seguridad. Estas conferencias llegan a formar parte de los esfuerzos para promover el programa de apoyo al establecimiento de estudios de Japón, llamado Cátedra JICA, el cual es impulsado por JICA en conjunto con universidades en todo el mundo, como es el caso de la Universidad Nacional y la Universidad de Costa Rica en este país. El programa de Cátedra JICA se crea con el propósito de promover y expandir el estudio y la investigación sobre las experiencias de desarrollo de Japón en diferentes áreas. En este sentido, vale la pena mencionar que en este año, dos profesores de la Universidad Nacional tuvieron la oportunidad de visitar diferentes lugares de Japón para conocer más sobre este programa. Desde el año 2022, JICA y la Universidad Nacional están trabajando juntos para promover la cátedra JICA. Como resultado de estos esfuerzos, este semestre se imparte un curso con créditos sobre Japón, llamado Japón Contemporáneo, dentro del programa de estudios de la UNA. Para finalizar, quisiéramos mencionar que este año la Agencia de Cooperación Internacional de Japón cumple 50 años de cooperación entre el gobierno de Costa Rica y el gobierno de Japón. Ha sido medio siglo de esta cooperación y, dichosamente, la Universidad Nacional ha formado parte de esta historia a lo largo de los años por medio de las diferentes modalidades de cooperación. Esperamos seguir compartiendo estos espacios de intercambio académico y impulsando juntos la cátedra JICA UNA. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias, señor Yoshida. Ahora nos complace escuchar las palabras de bienvenida a cargo del excelentísimo señor Ariyoshi Katsuhide, embajador de Japón en Costa Rica.
Doctor Francisco González Alvarado, rector de Universidad Nacional. Doctor Marco Méndez Cotto, director de la Escuela de Relaciones Internacionales de la UNA. ¿También? Sí, señor presidente de JICA, señor Yoshida Satoshi, y por supuesto, la doctora Kusunoki sensei. Y bueno, todos acá hoy día, los profesores, profesoras, estudiantes o amigos, amigas del Japón, muy buenas noches. Y primeramente quería agradecer a todos ustedes que hoy día han venido acá para escuchar esta lectura, que su tema es de la seguridad. La seguridad, bueno, eso depende o de la posición o de la geografía o historia. La cultura de cada país están distintos. Por ejemplo, acá, Costa Rica, vecino, Nicaragua, Panamá. Bueno, en nuestro caso, aunque somos vecinos, bueno, otro lado del Océano Pacífico, pero la situación está bastante distinta. Nosotros tenemos nuestros vecinos, Rusia, China, Corea del Norte. Todos poseen armas nucleares. ¿Sí? Es muy distinto que acá. Pero es como nosotros no podemos elegir nuestro vecino. ¿Sí? Es la, situación dada. Entonces, para ustedes, como hoy día la lectura del doctor Kusunoki será muy interesante, como en algún otro país que tiene la otra condición o casi muy distinta condición que ustedes. Y entonces lo que quería es, por favor, disfrute la lectura de hoy día. Y al final yo quería manifestar a mi sincero agradecimiento y respeto a todos los miembros de la Universidad Nacional y también de JICA, quien ha contribuido a realizar esta lectura. Enjoy. Gracias.
Muchas gracias, señor embajador. Seguidamente vamos a escuchar las palabras de bienvenida del señor rector, Máster Francisco González Alvarado.
Muy buenas noches, tengan todas y todos. Señor excelentísimo embajador Ariyoshi Katsuide, señor Marco Méndez Coto, director de la Escuela de Relaciones Internacionales, doctora Ayako Katsunuki, profesora del Instituto Internacional de Investigaciones para los Estudios del Japón, señor Satoshi Yoshida, representante residente de JICA en Costa Rica. Un gusto saludar también a la señora esposa del señor excelentísimo embajador que nos acompaña, a todos los académicos y académicas de la Escuela de Relaciones Internacionales, personal administrativo y por supuesto un abrazo a toda la población estudiantil, razón fundamental de que todos los días abramos las puertas de la Universidad Nacional y sigamos construyendo y aportando al desarrollo de este país. Quisiera iniciar estas palabras con una cordial bienvenida a la profesora Kusunuki a Costa Rica. Welcome to our university. Entiendo que esta es su primera visita al país y esperamos que su estancia en Costa Rica sea lo más placentera posible. Asimismo, un agradecimiento sincero a la Agencia de Cooperación de Japón en Costa Rica, JICA, no solo por sus 50 años, sino también por su apoyo y trabajo conjunto con la Universidad Nacional a lo largo de estos 51 años de creación de nuestra universidad, en diversas áreas del conocimiento y que se ha manifestado en importantes proyectos de docencia, investigación y extensión. La cooperación que hemos obtenido de JICA está materializada en múltiples acciones. Por ejemplo, estas facultades de ciencias de la tierra y el mar y de exactas y naturales que están aquí contiguas, tienen equipo científico tecnológico donado por JICA desde hace más de 30 años. Laboratorios de investigación que han podido realizar diferentes acciones en el área de la investigación y de la extensión gracias a esa colaboración que hasta el día de hoy mantenemos muy viva y que agradecemos profundamente al gobierno de Japón a través de JICA, esa cercanía con la Universidad Nacional. Para nosotros es un verdadero honor contar con la cátedra JICA como una iniciativa académica y una expresión más de esta colaboración sincera entre nuestra universidad y el Japón. La cátedra JICA 1, adscrita a la Escuela de Relaciones Internacionales, ha venido trabajando sistemáticamente en la organización de actividades orientadas a la reflexión y discusión de los estudios del Japón. Esto como una aproximación desde lo internacional. De esta manera se han organizado conferencias, charlas, talleres y hasta la estructuración de un curso con créditos. Estas actividades sobre temas tan diversos como la política internacional, educación para la paz, cultura, negocios, política exterior, entre otros. En este contexto es que se enmarca esta conferencia que hoy nos convoca. Japón se constituye como un referente internacional en la arena política, económica, cultural y ambiental. Así, para un país como Costa Rica, que se ha insertado en la escena internacional en temas como la promoción de la paz, el desarme y los derechos humanos, aprender de las experiencias de un Estado japonés hermano es fundamental. A pesar de que se nos separan distancias geográficas importantes y que a nivel cultural pueden existir diferencias, el sentido de hermandad y visiones comunes sobre temas como la paz y el desarrollo humano nos han acercado históricamente y nos han permitido construir una sólida relación de amistad que se ha profundizado también en términos académicos y que se ve reflejado en múltiples intercambios, proyectos de investigación, visitas, pasantías, formación de profesores y un sinfín de actividades de aprendizaje mutuo. De esta forma, quisiera reiterar el compromiso de la Universidad Nacional como universidad necesaria para crear y robustecer espacios académicos de discusión de ideas en un afán por acercar pueblos hermanos mediante el intercambio de experiencias y conocimientos. Agradecemos también a todas las personas que han estado detrás de la colaboración de esta actividad, a la Oficina de Asuntos Internacionales de nuestra universidad y también a la cooperación directa de quienes están detrás de la organización de la cátedra que hoy acá nos convoca. Muchas gracias y esperamos disfrutar muchísimo de este espacio.
Muchas gracias a la mesa principal por su saludo. Muchas gracias, señor rector. Seguidamente procederemos a escuchar la conferencia titulada Japan Security Interests and Challenges in the 21st Century a cargo de la profesora Ayako Kusunoki. Durante la conferencia, las personas edecanes tendrán papeles para quienes gusten plantear preguntas y estarán atentas a recibirlas, mismas que pueden ser en inglés o en español, como se sientan en la mayor comodidad. Ahora bien, antes de escuchar la conferencia, me permito presentar a la profesora Kusunoki y procederé a cambiar a inglés en esta parte. Kusunoki Sensei is professor at the International Research Center for Japanese Studies, also known as Nichibunken. She got her PhD at Kobe University in Japan. Her specialization areas are focused on Japanese political and diplomatic history and security studies. Her current research themes are the foundations of the security relationship between Japan and the United States, shaped during the 1950s, by studying the process in which both countries reach agreement on the provision of military bases and their management, along with Japan's rearmament. Her research aims to portray post-war times in the 1950s. Professor Kusunoki, thank you very much for being here with us today. Please join us, and the floor is yours. Just give me a second here.
I'd like to talk a little bit about my institution. This is the research center to promote Japanese studies, which means that the studies on everything related to Japan, the Japanese history, literature, arts and art history, the religion or the cultural relations with other countries. And this photo is our library, of which we are most proud of. We have more than 500,000 books in our library, including the books in foreign languages, English and Spanish and Chinese, German, etc. And our mission is, one of our missions is to collect Japanese books in foreign languages, books on Japan in foreign languages. And in addition, we have many periodicals and music records and newspapers. And also we have databases which everyone in the world can easily access through the internet. And most popular databases we have is on yokai. I'm not sure who knows about anyone who knows about yokai. It's a kind of imaginary world of Japan's imaginary view on the invisible world. So yokai is most popular from around the world. So I hope some of you visit our institution to learn Japanese or the Japanese history or culture. Oh, so, okay.
You can pause the presentation with this one.
This one? That's back. Okay, this one. Okay. Okay. Oh, that's,
You need to pause the presentation.
okay. So, this is library and databases. So, I like to overview Japan's foreign policy for 70 years today, mainly focusing on the concept of security and Japan's approaches to international world. Roughly, I like to talk through stages. Okay. So first of all, sorry, yeah, this is one. The Yoshida Doctrine. This is the principles that guided Japan's foreign policy after the defeat of the Asia-Pacific War. Okay. There are three core principles. One is to entrust most of Japan's security to the United States, based on the U.S.-Japan Security Treaty concluded in 1951. And secondly, to minimize Japan's own defense efforts. We have self-defense forces in Japan, but we don't call it a military. And also it's relatively restrained in a very small scale, low-level military. But anyway, to minimize Japan's own defense efforts is the second principle. And thirdly, to dedicate Japan's resources to economic development. So the Yoshida Doctrine is so called because these principles reflected decisions made by then Prime Minister Yoshida Shigeru. The photo is, his photo is on the slide. And when he promoted the peace promoted the peace with the Allied countries in 1951. And his decisions were important in two meanings. One is he decided Japan needs security arrangement with the United States. And he decided to conclude the U.S.-Japan Security Treaty, which provided the military bases in Japan to the United States. And secondly, he decided to build Japan's military forces, but only incrementally and only a very small scale, and only for self-defense, of course. And it is important to consider the international and domestic conditions that both Yoshida's decisions and subsequent Japanese foreign policy were formulated. With regard to the international order, Cold War structure has obviously impacted on Japan's decisions. Cold War defined Japan's foreign and security policy throughout the Cold War period. And in the Asia-Pacific region, the US-Soviet confrontation and US-China confrontations characterized the Cold War in Asia. And also, the liberal international order worked in Japan's favor. In particular, the free trade regime and economic assistance frameworks supported Japan's economic development. since the 1950s. And on the other hand, the domestic political requirements also should be taken into consideration. For the Japanese public, one is a peace constitution was domestic sets the domestic conditions and the foreign policy. And Article 9 of the Japanese Constitution, which is promulgated in 1946 during the occupation period, and I think this is almost the same time as the Costa Rica's constitution, and it has unique article on the renunciation of war, and the Article 9 stipulates that the aspiring sincerely to an international peace based on justice and order, the Japanese people forever renounce war as a sovereign right of the nation and the threat of use of force as means of settling international disputes. And in order to accomplish this aim, land, sea, and air forces, as well as other war potential, will never be maintained. And the right of belligerency of the state will not be reorganized. This, the article on renunciation of war became the norm that constrained Japan's foreign and security policy. Okay, back. Yes. And one more important domestic requirement is on economy. Since the Japanese economy was destroyed, almost everything during the Asian Pacific War by the air bombing, so the most emergent requirement is that to economic recovery. And so economic survival and development is the most important issues for the Japanese political leaders. Okay, so it is able to understand that the Yoshida Doctrine shaped Japan's foreign policy and security policy only until the early 1970s. This is the photo of the 1970 Osaka Expo. And in 1964, Japan held the Tokyo Olympic Games. So the Tokyo Olympic Games in 1964 and 1970 Osaka Expo were kind of symbols of Japan's reconstruction and economic development. And during this period, 64 to 70 is like a golden age of the Japanese history for many people. And during this period, Japanese economy developed very rapidly. You can see these graphs a little bit small and hard to show the detail, but you can understand. You can find that the Japanese economy, GNP, developed very rapidly around 1960. And also the economic growth rate was approximately 10% per year since the late 1950s through 1973. And the GNP quadrupled during this period. And by the late 1960s, Japan has become the second largest economic power in the West. So the changes in Japanese foreign and security policy was undoubtedly caused by Japan's rapid economic growth. Yes. So, okay. Okay. So economic growth, in what way economic growth affected Japan's foreign policy? We can understand these two dimensions. On the one hand, Japan became able to utilize its economic power as diplomatic sources. Japan could utilize more opportunities to pursue economic profit. And at the same time, Japan could expand its opportunities to achieve diplomatic goals. On the other hand, as Japan's economic grew, expectations and fears about Japan arose in the international community. So many countries expected that Japan could expand its economic assistance using its economic profit. And also, they, in particular the United States, expected that Japan could increase its commitment, more commitment to the maintenance of international economic order. But there are some concerns. There are also some concerns among the international community, which is some countries were afraid that Japan could use its military power to develop its use its economic power to develop its military. So, the international community might see the revival of Japan as a military power like before the 1945. So there are both concerns and expectations in the international community since around the 1960s as the Japanese economy developed rapidly. Okay. So around this time, political leaders began to think about how to contribute to international peace and stability, rather than turning this economic might and economic power to developing military power. So political leaders of the ruling party, the Liberal Democratic Party, considered it necessary to expand cooperation for international peace and stability through economic measures. So we can see the corporate and the official development assistance (ODA) sharply developed around the mid-1970s or the late 1970s. Originally, Japan's economic cooperation started with reparation for Southeast Asian countries in the 1950s, but it's relatively very low scale. From the late 1970s, Japan expanded ODA, during which time Japan started ODA to Costa Rica, I believe. And Japanese economic cooperation or economic assistance was very significant in terms of rectifying global inequality. But the purpose of economic cooperation with countries such as South Korea and Thailand is to support conflict zone or areas bordering on communist countries. And also assistance to China was very important to engage China to the West when the China changed its communistic policy to transform to reform and open door policy in the late 1970s or the early 80s. So Japan's economic strength certainly functioned as a source of power. So it would be appropriate to interpret the Yoshida Doctrine could be updated, and not only devote its sources to economic development, but its own economic development, but also to use economic power to contribute to global peace and security through non-military measures. Okay. And this decision, I go back to the previous one, this decision was supported by the security decisions, mainly led by Sato Eisak, Prime Minister Sato Eisak, who is the first Nobel Peace Prize winner of Japan, and who is the great uncle of the late Prime Minister Abe. And he's, during his age, about almost 8 years, from the mid-1960s to 1972, a series of security decisions were made. Okay, so the point was, to maintain the U.S.-Japan Security Treaty and to develop Japan's self-defense forces within the framework of the security cooperation with the United States. This means that Japan would not be a military power or nuclear power. And with regard to the nuclear developments, during this time, Japan declared that the three non-nuclear principles, and this consists of three principles. One is Japan would not possess nuclear weapons, and secondly, would not produce nuclear weapons, and thirdly, Japan would not permit the introduction of nuclear weapons into Japan. So these non-nuclear principles and other security decisions were important very important to set the course of actions of Japan after the 1960s. And in fact, these were, I think, the second major decisions made by the Japanese conservative leaders after Yoshida. Okay. This one? Okay. And since the 1990s, Japan started to dispatch the self-defense forces beyond the border. And so the self-defense forces participated in mine-sweeping operations, United Nations PKO, and international disaster relief activities around the globe. And so these activities has been an important component of the non-military cooperation for international peace and stability, in addition to an economic assistance to the developing countries. Okay, such an updated version of the Yoshida Doctrine has been further transformed since the 2000s. So, so you can see the map of the East and Southeast Asia. Japan, China, you can see Japan, China, India, and Indonesia. These are the neighboring countries of Japan. And again, so international environments in this area, the Asia-Pacific region, was the main factor that defined Japan's courses of action. So the end of the Cold War did not arrive as clearly in the Asia-Pacific region as it did in Europe. So there are remnants of divisions created by the Cold War in this region. Korean Peninsula or the North Korea's missile or nuclear development programs started to pose a threat to Japan. And also China-Taiwan relations is very difficult. And in addition, China's rapid economic development and military modernization began to influence on the regional order. So these environments had grave influence on Japan's decisions. Okay. So in order to deal with regional such kind of instabilities, the United States and Japan decided to maintain their bilateral alliance for regional security. So why was the alliance maintained was kind of a research question for international relations studies. And I think it's possible to explain by using the IO theories, and also possible to explain in the context of history, but regional security environments facilitate the continuation of the alliance between the United States and Japan. And the important thing is that the intention of both governments was facilitated and also strengthen the alliance, this bilateral alliance. Okay, so both governments announced that the joint declaration in April 1996. I don't think many young people know President Clinton, but this is very important decisions after the Cold War for Japan. So, so both leaders determined that the alliance between Japan and the United States should be maintained after the Cold War, and also the United States maintain its forces at the level of 100,000 in the region, and also the alliance should function as regional peace and stability. So after this joint declaration, Japan and the United States renewed its cooperation, defense cooperation, and updated its defense cooperation. And also the Japanese government introduced some legislation to support the defense cooperation between two countries. Okay. Okay. Okay, in the early 2000s, the two governments raised the level of security cooperation by one more step, and the United States-Japan alliance has begun to take on the character of an alliance for global security. And this is also the joint effort by both governments to improve the bilateral alliance for regional as well as global security. So the President Bush at the time and Prime Minister Koizumi announced that the Japan-US alliance of the new century saying that it is these common values and common interests that form the basis of US-Japan regional and global cooperation. So since around this time, both governments began to emphasize that this bilateral alliance was based on the common values and interests. So the question is why Japan or Japan and the United States determined to expand, enhance the cooperation between two countries, and why was it necessary? Obviously, security environment surrounding Japan and the global war on terror facilitated the deepening and expansion of the bilateral alliance. And during this period, US bases in Japan began to function in support of US forces deployed around the globe, and the cooperation between the self-defense forces and US forces enhanced much greater than before. In addition, the self-defense forces began to expand its activities beyond the border to contribute to global peace and security through cooperation in the fight against terrorism. In addition to the non-military activities like PKO, non-military purpose activities like PKO or disaster relief or supporting reconstruction plans, self-defense forces supported the oil fueling in the Indian Ocean, refueling operations in the Indian Ocean, or support for transportation in Iraq, and reconstruction in Iraq in early 2000s. So the self-defense forces expand its activities in the early 2000s. So, and the legislation for peace and security in 2015 is part of this development of legal system that responds to the globalization of alliances, and also is one of the milestones achieved since the 1990s. Okay. So, but not only Japan, but also other countries has been expanding their alliances with the United States respectively, or establishing security cooperation with other countries like Australia, the Philippines, and South Korea, respectively improved their cooperation with the United States. And so more understanding phenomenon has been since around 2000 or 2010s that defense and security cooperation outside the US alliances greatly developed. I'm able to illustrate in 4 dimensions. One is the bilateral relationships between US allies have been strengthened, and trilateral cooperation, including the US, have been developing as well, which as a whole facilitated the networking of the US-centered alliance system. So the hub and spoke system is the main structure of the Asia-Pacific region, but the relations between spokes also developed since around the 2000 or 2010s. And secondly, the bilateral, trilateral, or quadrilateral cooperation between the United States and its allied countries and India or ASEAN countries has developed. And one example is Quad is consisted of United States, Japan, Australia, and India, and has become more institutionalized since 2010s in terms of periodical high-level talks, including summit meetings. And thirdly, recently, European countries started to involve more and more in this region, Asia-Pacific region, or Indo-Pacific region, we call recently. And Japan tried to strengthen the defense cooperation with some European countries, such as the United Kingdom, Germany, France, or Italy. And fourthly, there is functional cooperation, such as humanitarian assistance or disaster relief and capacity building for for maritime security or cyber security. In this period, issue-based cooperation developed among several countries. So these dimensions, as a whole, constructs the security structure or security architecture since around the 2010s in the Asia-Pacific region. Okay, I skip this one. Okay. So along with enhancing this, the alliance with the United States and developing security cooperations with neighboring countries, Japan has promoted the free and open Indo-Pacific policy, we call, or FOIP policy. It is invented and implemented by the Abe cabinet from 2012 to 2010. This is a grand design invented by Abe and his staff, which connects, which tries to connect two countries. You can see the map a little bit small, but you can see the map. Try to connect two continents, Indian continents and African continents, and also two oceans, the Pacific Ocean and Indian Ocean. So, so very big scale and so very big scale grand vision of the Japanese policy. So it's the idea is to support the comprehensive development of infrastructure, trade and investment, business environment, human resources, and political and governance in African countries. But the core of this idea is the aspiration to build a regional order with universal values as its bond. So, okay. Yes. So, so Indo-Pacific, free and open Indo-Pacific policy is one of the core foreign policy of the Japanese government nowadays. And I like to talk about recent developments for one or two points. The series of decisions taken by the Japanese government seem to indicate a certain shift in the mind of political leaders on security and foreign policy since around the 2010s. And national security strategy of 2022 clarified the significant defense budget increase. Okay. So also, again, the very small graphs, but you can see the trend of the defense spending. Defense spending slightly decreased between early 2000 and 2010s, and slightly increasing from the 2013, since 2013. But range of increase per year was during 2010s was around 50 billion yen. But this time, since 2022, the increase level is 1.4 trillion yen per year. So this is a very big decisions for the Japanese government or, in the context of Japanese history. So also, the Japanese government decided to possess counter-strike capabilities and reinforce comprehensive defense architecture. But the most conspicuous the decision was, and also very, the dynamic decision was to increase the defense the spending. Okay. Okay, so, and besides, more interesting to me is that the National Security Strategy 2022 reveals that Japan reveals the Japan's intention to create a new balance. The National Security Strategy clarifies that as a major global actor, Japan will join together with its ally, like-minded countries and others to achieve a new balance in international relations, especially in the Indo-Pacific region. And also, some Japanese government documents says that Japan is to possess the minimum necessary defense capability as an independent country, so that Japan would not become a power vacuum that would destabilizing for regional security. This is a version, government document version of 2004, but after about 10 years, the government documents of 2018 says that the national defense objectives are to create a steady state basis security environment desirable for Japan, something like that. So the point is that Japan tries to create a balance of power, not prevent Japan from being a power vacuum. So this is a great leap from the past documents and the past government's statements, which only mentioned that Japan would not become a power vacuum or create security environment desirable for Japan. So what a new balance means or how it could be achieved, the new balance was not necessarily clear so far, but fundamental ideas about the role of military forces seem to have changed in the political circles, political or security circles. Okay, so sorry, the slide is different. Yes. So it's interesting that so Prime Minister Kishida's statements also suggest the change such kind. So he, his speech, he announced or he stated in his speech in 2023 that what we must prioritize first and foremost is developing proactive diplomacy. At the same time, diplomacy needs to be backed by defense capabilities. So it suggests the change as the same change as I mentioned before. It is unusual because prime ministers in the post-war Japan, in a post-war period, usually stressed that Japan would pursue to be a non-military power to achieve diplomatic purposes using mainly economic resources and develop military forces to the minimum necessary for self-defense. But the Prime Minister Kishida said that the diplomacy needs to be backed by defense capabilities. So there is a significant gap between the previous statements and Prime Minister Kishida's statements. So at the same time, he stressed Japan as a peaceful country, like Japan maintains to be a peaceful country as before. So it's kind of a confusing or complicating messages to the world and the Japanese public. But in any way, it seems that the security minds or the concept of security and the power or defense changed in the minds of the political leaders and the foreign diplomatic leaders in Japan since around the 2010s. So it is possible for us to see the impact of Russian invasions of Ukraine for these changes. So partly, yes, there is a significant impact of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. And so it is commonly said that what happened to Ukraine today could be led to Taiwan tomorrow theory tomorrow. Or what made Russia decide to launch the attack was the frequently asked questions in Japan during when Russia started to invade in the Ukraine. So this Russian invasion into Ukraine was very convincing among political leaders, which directly jumped up important decisions on the large increase of defense spending. But it is necessary to consider that still the long-term trend is very important. The defense spending increase is not a new trend. As I said before, I talked before, it was a political agenda since 2010s and slightly increased since the beginning of the 2010s. So again, external factors have been influencing on Japan's thinking, but the long-term trend should be considered. Also, the other long-term trend is the United States. So United States seems to decline its willingness to commit to the international order since around 2010s, the Obama administration. And also, as you know, there are serious divided society is emerging in the United States, which is also a big concern for Japan. So the U.S. commitment seems to be more unstable, and which could be the factor that destabilizes the international order in the region. So Japanese government seems to decide that Japan needs more defense efforts, and also at the same time Japan needs to enhance its alliance and expand its security cooperation with neighboring countries like Australia and India or ASEAN countries. Okay, so recently the newly elected Prime Minister Ishiba argues that the Asia-Pacific region needs the NATO-type security system, which is somewhat perplexing to the United States and the Japanese public. I'm not sure what he is thinking, and I'm not sure the detail of his idea, but what I could say is that currently there is a flexible, multipolar, and multi-layered security framework already in the Asia-Pacific or Indo-Pacific region, as I mentioned before, and it supplements the hub-and-spoke system, and also it satisfies a variety of security requirements for each countries. And it's the most unique character of this system is open-ended frameworks, which means each country can decide to join this framework or cannot or would not join this framework. So it depends on the decision of each country and very flexible and open-ended. So this type of security framework seems to be suitable to regional environments. So why is this forms is suitable to the Indo-Pacific region is that it is able to connect countries whose relationships are not necessarily stable, like Japan and Korea, or relationships are not necessarily the same in this region. So different types of framework connects countries whose relationships are not necessarily not stable or whose interests or not shared. So as a whole, it functions as a security framework, but the flexible and open-ended framework is for suitable for such a countries in a variety of countries with a variety of interests and a variety of values. Moreover, this form of security frameworks enables many countries to counter Chinese threat while maintaining relationships with China. For many countries, China is our largest trade partner, including Japan. So a framework that would contain China does not meet the needs of many countries that need to maintain relations with China. So Asia, so NATO type, the strict security, collective security defense system is not quite the requirements for the many countries in the region. In this sense, I think the Asian NATO idea is not realistic. Okay, so finally, I'd like to mention the nuclear issues might rise as a problem, already a problem, but might rise a more important problem for Japan. So, because this issue may show the discrepancy between Japanese society and between Japan and Western countries. The left photo shows the Nagasaki Peace Park. This year, the mayor of the city of Nagasaki did not invite the Israeli ambassador to Japan to the Peace Memorial ceremony, in addition to the Russian ambassador. Then the G7 countries announced that they would not send their ambassadors to the ceremony, saying that this decision by the city of Nagasaki equated Israel's Gaza operation with Russia's invasion of Ukraine. So many Japanese were very shocked by the fact that because they realized that the unity of the Western countries, which originated in World War II, was far superior to the act of mourning the victims of the atomic bombs. So this is a very symbolic events this summer with regard to, there is still a discrepancy between Japan and other Western countries. And the middle photo is the Nobel Peace Prize announcement. The Nobel Peace Prize this year was sent to the Confederation of Atomic and the Hydrogen Bomb Surface Organizations. So it is wonderful to see that the long-standing campaign, their long-standing campaign for nuclear abolition by the atomic bomb victims has been finally recognized. On the other hand, this once again reveals that the contradiction between the Japanese government's security policy, which is relying on U.S. nuclear umbrella, nuclear umbrella, and its stance of seeking and its Japanese government's stance of seeking nuclear abolition as the only country to have suffered nuclear war. So there is also another big discrepancy between the Japanese society and the Japanese government. Japanese society wanted security from the United States, but at the same time, the abolition of the nuclear armaments is the long-term aspiration for us. So there is another big discrepancy. So the right photo shows that the Fukushima nuclear plant, Fukushima #1 nuclear plant. As many of you know, that we had the severe nuclear power plant accident and radiation disaster in the Great East Japan earthquake in 2011. So there are still pros and cons in Japan concerning nuclear power plants. We can't still see the possibility that Japan would satisfy energy requirements without nuclear power plants. So, so many people were afraid that there might be another nuclear plant's accident because we have a big earthquake almost every year. And so many people thinks that the nuclear power plants is not a wise the choice for Japan as natural disasters countries. But we can't supply energy without nuclear power plants so far. So it is, once again, this is another big differences between big difference over the conflicts among the Japanese society. So these nuclear issues might be more a serious problem for Japan. So I'd like to stop here, and I'd like to hear about your comments and questions for, based on my talks. So, okay, thank you very much. Gracias. Okay, thank you very much.
Yo tengo uno. Sí. Y póngame en las pantallas.
Thank you very much, Professor Kusunoki, for your interesting lecture. Now we are going to start with a section of Q&A. We have many questions, but I try just to summarize and just to have 4 questions. We are just waiting for the microphone. Okay. Yes. So the first question that we have says, okay, with the rising influence of China in the Pacific, how has Japan adjusted its foreign alliance strategy, particularly with the United States and other democracies in the region?
Okay, so about China's...
Yes, let me read it again.
Sorry.
No problem. With the rising influence of China in the Pacific, how has Japan adjusted his foreign alliance strategy, particularly with the United States and other democracies of the region?
Okay, thank you very much. China obviously poses military threat to us. So it is a serious problem for us. But China is the main trade partner for Japan as well. And also, we can't move to other place in the world. China is a neighbor, and we can't change this situation. So we have to coexist with China. So that's why on the one hand, we need the alliance with the United States to counter the Chinese military threat, and also expand the cooperation with other neighboring countries. The ASEAN countries and Australia and India also shared interests with regard to China partly. Am I answering to that question? Is this?
Yes, yes, thank you very much. Actually, I think that this one can help just to elaborate a little bit more, because it says, so what is specifically the strategy to maintain peace in the South China Sea with this geopolitical situation?
Okay, thank you. Defense capabilities is important. So Japanese government decided that the more strengthen defense capabilities in the southern part of Japan. The Okinawa is very important to counter the Chinese activities. And also we, at the same time, we supported the ASEAN countries which faces the South China Sea, like Vietnam and the Philippines mainly. We supported those countries, the capacity building of the maritime security. So this strategy is the only, what we have is the Japan's own defense capabilities, and also supporting the neighboring countries is a strategy. This is the only strategy we have, I guess.
Thank you very much. We have another question. Well, since we are in Costa Rica, I think that it's also interesting to know your ideas about the relationship between Japan and Costa Rica. So the question says, what is the role of a country like Costa Rica for Japan in terms of diplomacy and international cooperation? And the person asks, is Costa Rica merely a cooperation receiver, or are we something else for Japan?
Well, as I talked to you in my presentation, Japan tries to be a peaceful country, and as a peaceful country, Japan used its economic power to support the other countries, mainly developing countries, and through which Japan thought that it could contribute to the international peace and stability and prosperity. But since around 1990s or 2000s, not only the non-military measures, but also the military capabilities it was necessary to maintain the international order around, in the region. So the only diplomatic means is not enough for Japan recently, but the but I still think that the diplomatic means is very important to resolution of the conflict resolution or the disaster relief or humanitarian assistance. Such kind of activities necessitate the diplomatic capabilities and diplomatic resources. So I'm not trying to say that the defense or military capabilities is much more important than the military diplomatic resources, but diplomatic means or diplomatic capabilities is very important. But for Japan, defense capabilities became necessary since around the 1990s, much more than before.
And one last question, because I mean, it has been really interesting exchange, and also because of the time. In our department, we have a new program about strategy and intelligence. So this question is aligned with this new program. So thinking about technological development and thinking about artificial intelligence and cybersecurity, which kind of role artificial intelligence and cybersecurity plays in Japan's national security strategy?
In the field of cybersecurity, Japan is a developing country, and we are, how could I say, many of our government system and society are not digitalized. That fact was revealed during the COVID-19 period. So cybersecurity is the most emergent and necessary fields for Japan's defense policy. So I can't say more than this fact. Is that okay with you?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your answers, and thank you very much for your interesting lecture. A big applause, please, for our guest lecturer. Now I'm going to switch to Spanish, if you allow me. Muchas gracias por sus preguntas y su participación. Sabemos que había más preguntas, pero por temas de tiempo también y la agenda de nuestras personas invitadas y nuestra conferencista invitada, tuvimos que hacer una síntesis. Para finalizar, quisiéramos, como una muestra de agradecimiento de parte de la Escuela de Relaciones Internacionales y de la Universidad Nacional, entregarle una muestra de agradecimiento, un certificado y un detalle para que recuerde su casa, la Universidad Nacional. So we invite our guests here, please, in front of the table. The certificate says National University, Faculty of Social Science, School of International Relations presents this certificate of appreciation to Dr. Ayako Kusunoki for her invaluable contribution as a guest speaker with the lecture Japan Security Interests and Challenges in the 21st Century, given this 23rd date of October in Heredia, Costa Rica. Asimismo, un pequeño detalle de parte de la Universidad Nacional y la escuela, un regalo típico de la carreta, la rueda y la carreta típica costarricense, y una de las últimas publicaciones, la más reciente, de la Escuela de Relaciones Internacionales, el libro sobre teorías de relaciones internacionales. Muchas gracias a todas las personas que nos acompañaron en esta conferencia. Damos por terminada esta actividad y les deseamos una feliz noche. Que estén muy bien.